Not what's Coldplay are here.
Hello and welcome to the D-Trap Spinners. I'm actually joined by lead singer of Coldplay, Chris Martin. Chris, how you doing?
Hello.
Hello, Chris. I didn't know you were a fan of the D-Trap Spinners podcast.
Yes, I love it. I play the lyrics on the guitar and that. Play what did you say on the guitar?
And who's your favourite presenter out of Miles and Gary?
I'm more of a fan of Patrick Kilty.
Patrick, he's good, isn't he? He's good, isn't he? See you later, Chris.
See ya.
That was Chris Martin. Just popped in. Just popped in. All right.
Oh.
Got Chris Martin there. Hello, this is actually the voice of Miles Purnell and my comedy sidekick, and Mr. GF, Gary Forrestal, here in the wings. Gaz, how's it going?
The wings. I'm
In the
full of
wings.
stage
In the
love, darling. That was sprung on me, that Chris Martin thing. I feel I didn't do myself justice. So when you're listening back to that, imagine like how difficult that is. Give me a lot of love, sympathy, and support. I didn't know Miles was going to do that. Yeah, it's actually, and obviously we're not going to get straight into it. This is one of my faves. This has always been one of my faves. And in fact, when I came to listen back to this show, like every time when I listen back to a show for the D-Trout Spinners, I will sometimes remember quotes before they're said. This one, I literally listened to about 3 minutes, and I'd written down 10 quotes from, because it just jogged. That's all I needed to jog my memory for everything that came up during the show. It's a joy. But anyway, before that, we've got. Well, let's say what we've got coming up, because we always never do this, and then we get to like 3 minutes through, we start doing it. So coming up, we'll have a general discussion about the show. Mars is going to tell you which show it is in a minute. We'll have our favourite quotes. We'll have maybe a little hint of XFM in the community, but breaking news, we're actually going to do, we've had a lot of feedback, so we're going to do one of our XFM in the community specials. We won't be reading out too much during this show, but we're going to record straight after this another one where we go through your feedback. So that's to come. And apparently we're putting another track in the bloody music library,
the D-Trout Spinners library. And a lot of people I saw had commented over, well, I should first and foremost say Happy New Year to all of our D-Trouties.
Oh yeah, no, Happy New Year.
Well, I said it first, so
no, I was copying you.
Okay,
that's what I do. You're so great.
Oh, thanks very much.
Really like you.
No, just likewise, and to an extent. My Christmas decorations are down, but what a year already it's been. I don't want to talk about it too much, but I do like to go on the sort of Gary Forrestal political opinion piece. Just a brief minute or so of what you think about it all. And also you've had a bit of tummy trouble, haven't you, as a 36-year-old gentleman?
Well, yeah. Well, that's a lot you've just left me with here. Just go into the year politically and summarise it. The tummy trouble, yeah, I've had bad summer. We were going to record this about 3 days ago, and but I haven't. I think I heated something up, not pizza, and I didn't heat it up enough. It was salmon, and so anyway, it's not been very nice. But yeah, politically, very interesting. What happened in America this week was something that I predicted, and I wasn't alone in predicting this. And it wasn't a shocking prediction, but that would have happened before now, after November the 3rd, and I was surprised it took that long. It's got no peer in terms of like what's happened previously. Nothing like this has ever happened. So it's interesting, but obviously horrific, depressing. But you know, what else? What do you expect? What do you expect is going to happen when all this is being said by the top man? And it's crazy what bigger following he still has. He retains 20 to 30% of the entire country. And my prediction is he will run in 2024. He will win the Republican nomination and may well win the presidency. But that's there you go.
Cheery. Happy New Year.
Happy
Happy
New
New
Year.
Year.
No, and obviously over on these shores, it's Brexit, COVID, Brexit, COVID, Brexit, COVID, Brexit. You can just like spin a wheel, and it just lands on like the Wheel of Fortune. It's just one of the two all the time. So very depressing. But you know,
Well, my week's got off to a cracking start because I've started using a new exfoliant to
is it?
combat blackheads, because in London it's got very bad smoke pollution. I think people are aware of. So I'm just doing a nice exfoliant. As you can see, I've got a nice clean face, unlike
Mars
yours.
Purnell, smoker, ladies and gentlemen, heavy smoker.
If you're
Um,
listening, be it Benson and Hedges, still looking for sponsors. All right.
yeah. Imagine if
It's good,
we
but I
got
do look good
Benson
though.
and Hedges sponsored this show. Like it's
Oh,
illegal for a tobacco
tobacco
company to,
company.
but they were the only ones who wanted it. What is your exfoliant, Mars? Because you're dying for me to ask you.
Well, I'm
What
just
is?
is it looking different? I can't remember the brand name, but it was one
You
that
look a
was
bit. You look a bit fresher. Yeah, you look.
yeah, I do.
You look.
I
You
think
look young because you've shaved.
shaved, yeah.
Sometimes Mars has a moustache. Sometimes he doesn't. How long does your moustache take to grow from beginning to its normal length?
Oh, good question. It's not actually, but about 5 to 6 days. Bite my
Six
finger.
days. 6 days to get a full moustache. That's not bad.
I've got something I can quickly mention now. This is from James Lutchford. Of course, we're going to have a lot more XFM in the community, but something that's a little bit related to what we're talking about now.
Mm,
Got to say, I'm a big fan of your show, and I'm on and
thank
slowly
you.
becoming addicted to these as much as the shows that you dissect,
Oh,
expertly and honestly, I might add. Thank
thank
you
you.
very much, James. Thanks to lockdown, I'm nearly up to date with the current shows and have just listened to you discussing Carl's identity or listeners' lack of people knowing it. However, can I ask what either of you two look like? It pains me to say it, but all I can picture you two by your voices are BBC's Dick and Dom. Apologies, or Ash Cutler, the little fella in the wheelchair. Please say it isn't so and help me eradicate this terrible image from my head. You're both too talented for me to even associate you with those two, and I apologise wholeheartedly for even imagining it. Don't worry,
Hey,
James. I'm
James.
flattered by Dick and Dom. If I can do anything,
James, if I'd earned what Dick or Dom has earned in media, I'd be very happy with that. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's I remember when Dick and Dom were on children's TV, and then because what happened to Ant and Dec a few years before that were on
it's
children's
MTV
TV.
Live.
They then they did so well. They went to adult TV, and obviously they've done fantastic. It's been a fantastic success. Dick and Dom did it in the bungalow. It went to adult TV, and it was like panned. It was so shit.
Was that the first use of the word in the something? Or was
No,
that like an Ali G thing?
no, Ali G had used it before, and other people had used it before that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. No, it wasn't at all. But we, James, do not look like Dick and Dom. I can't quite picture what Dick and Dom look like. I know they're two kind of handsome guys in their early 30s. We're not that.
Both in
But
our third.
but we look different. I mean, I look different to how I used to look.
Gary looks like
Own
a big.
beard.
We look a bit like Mike and Sully from Monsters Incorporated. I look like a sort of one-eyed alien goblin, and Gary looks like a big furry yeti. Is that a fair
Yeah,
justification?
yeah. I've often, but well, you're wearing glasses, so
Yeah.
does that thing in that thing wear
Mike,
glasses?
you got no idea what I'm talking about. I've got no idea about Monsters Inc. Got no
No,
idea
I
about
don't know.
animation. Don't
I
care
do
about the world of
roughly know.
film. Not interested. Don't
No,
care.
so Mars has a moustache usually, no other facial hair, but it's quite a thick moustache.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite. I don't have much of a moustache, but I have very thick facial hair everywhere else. I've lost weight recently, so I'm not quite slim.
Interesting.
We're both quite slim-ish. Bit kind of. We put on a bit of a barrel around the middle when we eat too much. We both do that.
Sounds like a
Mars
bit
got
like a
long.
Lonely Hearts column, doesn't it?
Yeah, Mars has got longer hair than me. He's got quite long hair for a man. A bit. I think he's a bit, but he's got long hair. And no, and my hair's getting long though as well. Mars is wearing headphones and he's wearing
Yep.
a t-shirt, and I'm wearing a t-shirt.
Wow, what
So that's what we do.
ordinary description of two
No, I know.
podcasters.
I did it deliberately.
But basically, James, we'll do a live show at some point, and you can
James,
come
no,
and meet.
James, I've got a solution for you, James. We are on, and I would suggest this to everyone, obviously, but you don't have to do this. We're on Patreon now. We're on Patreon, so just put in D Trout Spinners Patreon, and you'll find us on there. And if you join for a little monthly subscription. You can choose what that is. We do bonus shows, and there's 2 I think on there at the moment, both audio, but we are going to be putting little video clips of ourselves on there, so you can
keep saying it.
to see.
Keep saying it. When are you going to do it?
Well, have you put yours on?
No, not yet.
No, so we both Mars has done a really like Steven Seagal, Steven Spielberg
It's
type.
probably more Seagal than Spielberg at the moment.
But and I'm just going to do a video on my phone in my flat. But we periodically put videos of ourselves on there. If you're a patron, you can see what we look like. So there's a solution. But I just want to say thank you very much for your email. Really appreciate it. Very kind words, James. But I think it's time now to get on with the main part of the show. So, Mars, what's the show today? Which one are we reviewing?
This week we discuss episode 38, 10th of May 2003. Ricky is incensed that the show failed to win any Sony Awards and gives Carl money to perform degrading homoerotic tasks. I'll put a link to the original show in the description of this alongside all the different ways to get in touch, Patreon, etc. And then when you're ready, you can come back and debrief with us. Gary, what are your...
Hang on, Mars, are they back yet?
Oh, yeah, sorry, you're back. Hi.
Oh, hi. Oh, yeah, I just wondered.
Initial thoughts, as we always do, Gary, what are they?
It's a fantastic show. Got lots of elements that I like. Not winning in Sony is a great way to start off, and it kind of underpins the whole show, and actually the show after that as well, where they get Dr. Fox on. And I've often thought this, that I do believe they would have been disappointed not to win, but it made for so much of a better show. Can you imagine if they'd won? It wouldn't and they'd come on and said we've won. It's that they're very good when they're being self-deprecating and kind of taking the piss of themselves and each other. And this is a perfect situation for that, where they didn't even get a bronze, and they got a bronze last year.
Means nothing to me. It means nothing to me, he says.
No, but I do think they're disappointed, but it made for a very good show. And yeah, what Carl would do for money is a great little feature, and I do believe they did a little bit of planning for that. But it's funny that they actually sat down and planned it, and that was the feature they could come up with. And it is brilliant, but it's shoddily brilliant. It's like kind of it's ridiculous.
Well, it's the worst thing that you could do on radio, isn't it? To say, I'm going to perform a physical task and we're just going to record the fruits of it. But what makes it funnier is that you can hear their reactions and the moving of the mics and the echoey voices. It just, you're imagining it. Like we were talking about last week, the benefits of audio, where even though I haven't seen it, I can see Carl on all fours taking off Ricky's smelly cotton.
Ricky just laughing, like just, and that's a funny thing is like, and again, it's a very honest show, and this is an example of that honesty. Ricky's reaction throughout is very real the whole way. He never acts or pretends with that, because he even says, I don't even like this anymore. So when he did change, because it is a weird thing. What a weird, strange situation you're in. You're getting another man to take off just to take off your shoe and sock for money. And I also like the way that the things that they pitch to Carl, they pitch them very well. Like nothing is kind of overtly sexual. It's just like having a shower with our mate Johnny. Just washing each other, and then he goes, no, just washing yourselves. Literally, you're just washing yourself. There's other examples where it kind of sounds like it's going to be sexual, but they make it, and I think that's weirder than to have an overtly sexual act to pay someone to do, than to make it like creepily, in a creepy way, non-sexual. Oh no, you just take off my shoes and socks. That's all. Don't caress. You don't need to like give me a foot massage. Just to take. That's the weird bit. Anyway.
Well, can I ask you what you would do for money, and what in a game of what price, Gary? Would you rather say I've got 20 quid, right? And I asked all the DTRLTs on Twitter, what would you rather do, right? Take off Ricky's sock, shower with another man, say me, shower with me, give Dale Winton a neck massage, or wear Steve's underpants? I can tell you what everyone else chose, but what would you do?
Out of those things for 20 quid?
Well, Yeah.
I'd give Dale Winton a neck massage.
I would give Dale Winton because I think we'd actually have a great
I'd do that. I'd pay 20 quid to do that.
I loved Dale Winton when I was growing up.
Yeah,
He was like one of the best TV presenters in the 90s, wasn't he?
Tragic. Oh yeah, very, very, very talented. I know he's kind of seen with through eyes of a bit sneeriness. That he's very, and he is, you know, he's very
effeminate.
No, but that wasn't even what I was thinking of. Like, yes, he's very camp, but I'm more thinking of the shows he does. They're very kind of, he's not doing
their magazine-y breakfast.
He's never doing Mastermind. Good TV reviewer made a great point when he did Bring on the Wall.
Bring on the wall.
And then they changed the presenter. One of the dancers off Strictly, the TV presenter, the TV reviewer who I read, Ali Ross, he was furious. He was like, he hated Bring on the Wall. It was a terrible show, but it was brilliantly terrible. And a part of that was Dale. Dale was making it brilliant, like just through his just being Dale.
Well, Supermarket Sweep's another example of that, isn't it?
Supermarket Sweep's a good, like, yeah, it's very kitsch, very kind of, you know, he's twee. Yeah, as soon as you change to Anton Dubek, it's like you've lost that magic because it's a shit show, but Dale makes it good. So anyway, go on.
Everyone else said they wanted to take off Ricky Sock, which was between the 36% Ricky Sock and 34% Dale Winton neck massage. Wear Steve's underpants and shower with another man. But we didn't say who.
Did you put brackets you, like you with the other man?
I didn't feel comfortable to put that.
No, that's fine. No, I just wondered if it was a projection of you or...
No. Just to add on the defeat at the Sonys, a couple of interesting points. From Sean Wright, said, who's a patron as well. Maybe Ricky had a point about the panel apparently taking in interest in funny phone calls. Maybe the lack of listeners phoning in, mainly because RSK didn't want any calls, cost them the content that the Sony panel were looking for. Clem Fandango back ups this point. I think that's all that sets them apart from other radio shows. Apart from the odd email or episode, there's zero engagement by the listeners, which is, you know, true. It is all about them, isn't it? The show.
Yeah, that's why Dickie Anders, who we interviewed, check out that interview, it was a few months ago, is so well known amongst the audience because it's so rare. There is no other Dickie Anders because there's no other one who gets into extended interaction with them, and they don't take calls hardly ever, except for the smelly eyebrows lady and that disastrous what was the game show?
Extra Family Fortune.
Extra Family Fortune. Yeah, they don't engage, but they are very funny, and it's interesting actually because Dr. Fox appears in the next episode. I won't talk too much about it because that's for next week, and he kind of they're having a bit of a laugh with the interview, and I'm sure Dr. Fox kind of got it was a bit of a joke, but he's genuinely answering the questions quite sort of earnestly, and actually I think, you know, Twiggy and Joe, they were much funnier than you. Funnier than us. Yeah, they were actually, and he's kind of being genuine. Like, I do believe there were very good sort of local radio shows that no one has heard of, but if you were judging it, you'd always judge the Ricky Gervais show on XFM to be worthy of any award, you know. I don't know what they really sent in. Obviously they didn't send in the mashup they do at the beginning, that's the joke, but they have to send in a full show, I believe. So it's not, you don't send in clips of shows and put them together. You have to send in a full show. So whatever one they send, the only thing I would say about the award is to enjoy the Ricky Gervais show as much as we all do, you need to buy into it. And that comes from having listened to a few shows. So it's not, the first you hear of the Ricky Gervais show is almost like wonderment and kind of, you're creeped out and weirded out, and then it starts to become funny when you bought into, oh, that's what Carl, okay, so I'm getting it now. This is how they present themselves. This is kind of the vibe of the show. If you just listen to one show and you're on a panel, you probably don't necessarily buy into it, but it's a shame because
it does remind me of, like, because I've been listening to a few podcasts this week and revisiting one in particular, which was Bob Mortimer being interviewed by Richard Herring's Leicester Square Theatre podcast. What he was saying is, he's saying, like, your brand of comedy, this sort of surreal abstract, is really difficult to do, and it's so enjoyable and it's funny and it's unique and totally different to anything that anyone's doing. However, Richard said, if you're not in the mood for it, it can be really fucking irritating. And it's funny because the amount of people, the listeners that we have who say, I love it, but my partner hates it. And maybe that's, it is not going to appeal to everyone, but that's also the benefit as well, because it's that same thing, you want to like the niche, you want to be part of a subculture in many ways. Like, it's almost more enjoyable if no one else likes it, because you're like, this is for me, this is made for me.
Really part. I wouldn't. So yeah, the comparison there is not. That's a good point about Richard Herring, and I must listen to that interview because that just sounds fascinating just from that little snippet. It's not. I'd never compare the Ricky Gervais show to Bob Mortimer's style of comedy, other than in terms of level of quality, of how enjoyable both those things are. But the Ricky Gervais show is not a surreal show. There's no real surrealism. There is some bits that the Monkey News gets surreal, but it's a very, I guess for all of us, probably there's times we're not in the mood for the Ricky Gervais show, but most of the time we are. But I guess it's not more like as individual people and how we change throughout the day as to what we fancy. It's comparing different people and that what they just buy into. But if you don't buy into it, like my dad, we were talking about my dad earlier, and he listened to our old radio show. He enjoyed it. We've got a lot of comedy references with each other, like a lot of crossover and what we like. He got me into Harry Hill. He also loves An Idiot Abroad, and that's how he sort of talked to me about it one day. He said, do you know who this Carl Pilkington is? I said, yeah, I absolutely know. And then I told him about the shows, the XFM shows. No. So he loves Carl Pilkington. He loves comedy in general. He loves Ricky Gervais, loves Stephen Merchant. All of those ingredients, yet he just has no interest in going back and listening to the Ricky Gervais show. Like on XFM, I said to him, it's really interesting because it's how they met and it's how they formed, their relationships formed. Now, some people just like, because we talked about, and you mentioned it earlier today, how much we like audio, and it leaves gaps for filling in, your own picture, painting your own picture of a scene. But some people, then audio's not for them. So that's why TV is a more successful medium. I think audio can be better in many ways, and I'm glad the XFM show with Ricky Gervais wasn't filmed, like it wasn't a film. I do still wish there was some webcam footage, just from some of the shows.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm glad it's audio, and so I think some people don't like audio. Some people don't like, they can't suspend their disbelief for long enough to buy into something like the Ricky Gervais show, and they just don't want to. You've
also got to really like buy into those personalities as well. If your presenter's not engaging at all, you're going to switch off within the first 10 minutes, I think. Maybe they do that bit at the start, don't they, of the show? They go, there's a weak link in our midst, and which is great. That could have been a good quote, actually. But they're blaming Carl for losing the award, and they're obviously doing it tongue in cheek, because I tell you what, if it was down to like those Series 0 Ricky and Steve shows, I really don't think they'd get an award then.
No,
they probably wouldn't even be entered, to be honest.
No, well, I know. I think they probably would have got awards without Carl. Probably more than they got with him. But that, as I say, getting an award is not necessarily a reflection of quality. You add Carl to the mix, to Ricky and Steve, and it gets weird, just about weird enough that a panel who listened to an individual show wouldn't quite get it. Whereas if you just Ricky and Steve in Series 0, all right, it's very raw and kind of haphazard, but you get it. It's kind of entertaining radio.
Like all of it, they were ahead of their time, right? That's the way I think. That style of presentation, that style of speech radio.
I just think it's timeless. I don't place time it like that.
No, but it's not. The guys were saying beforehand. They didn't do call-ins. They did something different. And like you said, you've got to buy into it. You've got to buy into their relationship. You've got to buy into them personalities. Some people are really fucking irritated by Ricky Gervais, even the Ricky Gervais that we liked back then.
Yeah.
And Carl Pilkington, they really rub them up the wrong way. They get a lot of negative feedback, but I think that's now used now. Like, there are so many shows that were, ahead of their time in the 90s, like that.
I think it's probably ahead of its time in terms of its honesty. And I don't know whether a show like the Johnny Vaughan show that I listened to would have existed had it not been for the XFM Ricky Gervais show. I suspect it probably would, because it's not like they invented honest radio. And that's the key, number one key. I say one reason why it's so successful with its underground kind of sub audience that we all are today is because of its honesty, more than the humor, more than obviously all those things are important, humor, tone, but its honesty is different to any other radio show. And I think certainly on XFM it's influenced a lot of shows on XFM, but I wouldn't say it's of its time. I don't place a time on that. It's kind of strange. It's just honest radio. I'm sure that shows like that existed in the past in America and in all parts of the world, but they just weren't as good at it. These three happen to be just very good at it. And Ricky, who is the main decider on the show of how each show goes, he is the main talent. He is very, very good at making something entertaining through being honest, and it's only when he started to lose that honesty, and that starts in the podcasts and and has continued throughout to this day, that's when you start to lose the entertainment factor. And as soon as it's not natural, like we interviewed she was lovely, Lisa Ullman, and she was the executive producer of the Ricky Gervais animated series, and we're very complimentary of it because I it's a fantastic piece of work to have animated it like that. But I still believe that those shows in general, they're not as real, and things that don't come up organically. They do come up organically during this whole year, 2 years worth of radio that we're reviewing. So
let's return to the episode in hand. How many members of Coldplay can you get into a Mini?
28.
No, it's 4. It's a 4-seated vehicle, so it's actually very straightforward.
I've heard that joke.
It's the first thing whenever I hear the Chris Martin bit, I go straight to that episode of Buzzcocks with Simon Amstel. I'll put a link in the description.
That's it, yeah.
But it is so funny because
and
they're taking.
I bet he wrote that himself. I bet he didn't. Of course
he did.
He had writers, obviously. Yeah. But Simon Amstel, another kind of mutual hero of ours. But that's very good. It's kind of Harry Hillette.
We're taking the piss at the blandness of Chris Martin. Also, I've got a bit of beef with Chris Martin. You know, he's engaged to Dakota Johnson, the actress.
I think I know Dakota. Was she the actress who was very young in something? She played an actress when she was 6 or 7.
No, she was her grandmother's Tippi Hedren. I can't remember her name now. But it was in loads of Hitchcock films. I know you will probably be on the tip of your tongue.
I love, yeah.
But Dakota Johnson was infamously in 50 Shades of Grey, who's probably one of my future wives.
Okay, that sounded very creepy, but go on. Probably one of my future wives. That's an interesting way of
but she's being married to. But I'm funnier than Chris Martin.
No, Chris Martin. But Chris Martin's worth probably $250 million.
Do you know what I find really sweet about the whole sock taken off story is when Carl goes, what if my parents are listening? This is what about my parents listening? I think they go, Carl's doing all right for himself. He's down in London. He calls up, he's taking off socks for money.
Yeah.
How degrading.
Yeah, and I genuinely believe, again, it's the honesty. Like he would genuinely. That was probably his biggest worry of like doing that his family would listen. But yeah, the Chris Martin stuff, as we were talking about it, just a great example of them going into little dialogues between each other, and it's mainly Ricky's answers, but and again, it's like that Simon Amstel joke, the way Ricky performs it. Like he gives the most bland answers. No, I made them up in my head with a guitar. No, you heard you're in the Bahamas. No, I'm here. And now, Chris, how old are you now? 28. He doesn't pretend to kind of make up funny answers that are answers that are like inherently funny because it's bland.
And there's that brilliant thing that you forwarded me on, which was Chris Martin being interviewed.
Yeah.
He infamously makes an appearance in Extras, and he goes, "What are you doing here? A factory in Wigan? It's mental."
Yeah. Well, that's a great.
And I know this is going to sound absolutely mental, but would you mind performing a single for us? Are you having a laugh?
That's probably my favourite moment of a like 5 minute period of extras as a whole, and when Chris
Yeah.
Martin's singing the song as well, and he's kind of just trying to keep a smile out like in the background, and yeah, it's played very, very well. I know this is going to sound absolutely mental because obviously he's been forced to have Chris Martin in his sitcom. He doesn't want him, but
there's that interview
yeah,
that you
I think
told me
they
about.
filmed that thing I sent you. Actually, should we post that online? But there is one part of the interview, and this kind of speaks to genuine naughtiness from Ricky, where it actually, I can't remember the word that is used, but he has to overdub it with another word. And actually, the word he overdubs it with is quite offensive anyway. But the word he must have used at the beginning, I think I read what it was, but I think it's the M word. And he realised that you couldn't use that, so he overdubs himself, which is very rare for Ricky. He never you don't see that kind of self-correction.
Could you bleep out? Could you say the word but bleep out the vowel?
Me? Are you asking me to genuinely say it? No, I can't. I'm not going to say it.
I'm joking.
But no, put it on. But it is hilarious. I can't remember. What's he says like how much did you get for your latest album or something? He said he goes 1 billion or 2 billion, and then he goes paid for a bypass in tax. It's just a lovely line for Chris Martin. Actually, it shows Chris Martin, and this is probably to answer your earlier question. Why is Dakota Fanning with Chris Martin? Dakota Johnson. Sorry, there is a Dakota Fanning, isn't there?
There is, yeah. You're
yeah,
correct.
that's right. Okay. But why? Because he's very funny. He's very rich. That's got to be something to do. He's very funny. He actually, I quite like his look. Like but he's not. He's never going to be like a Richard E. Grant kind of. We were talking about him earlier. So he's not going to be like a leading man in a film. But he's got that kind of plain look. That's kind of, I think,
inoffensive.
Women go for. But mainly it's the humour, and that thing with Ricky really shows it.
Were you pleased to see Chris Martin performing with Liam Gallagher at that
Well,
the benefit?
No, because it's no offense to Chris Martin at all, but everyone, like in my circle, I've got two main fandom groups. Obviously, this is one, the Ricky Gervais show on XFM, and Oasis is another one. So I'm on quite a lot of the Oasis forums, and people who I'm friends with on Facebook who I don't even speak to, but they are also Oasis fans. We were all kind of, everyone was hoping it was going to be Noel, and I was a bit pissed off with Noel. Noel was on holiday and he didn't come back. So when I think Liam walked out, and then Chris Martin walked out, and it was so disappointing. But and it's not Chris Martin's fault whatsoever. But it was just
not.
It was just like we all wanted Noel, and I think we'll get it this year. I that is the worst thing Noel's done, I think, is not doing that. He didn't want to come back off holiday and he didn't want to reconnect with Liam. I get those two things, but in the wake of what happened, I think you should, especially your multi-million,
maybe 2021.
holiday.
2021 could be a year of an Oasis reunion.
Yeah, but then I don't think live concerts are going to be back any time in 2021. So it's a bad year for them to reform. But I did see there was some nice New Year message from Liam to Noel. He often sends nice messages to Noel, and Noel never responds. But I think there's a thawing of the bad relationship between them. But yeah, no. So I was very disappointed when Chris Martin walked out. It was like I don't know, being told you're going to Florida, and then actually no, we mean Florida, which is a little village outside of Skegness. Like
Centre Park.
No, I love Centre Parks. Actually, I'd be excited about that. I love Centre.
What about Haven Holidays and Hopton? Would you be okay with that?
We were at Butlins, Ponting.
Something that I've always wanted to know in this episode, and again, just from years and years of listening to it again and again, they're going to give him 20 quid to take off the sock. And says, I'll give you a tenner. And say, no, Carl, you keep that tenner because it's the tenner that you owe me. I just want to know what Carl owed Steve money for. It was £10. What a ridiculous thing to want to know.
Yeah. In
what
the context
did he owe £10 for?
Yeah, it's funny. I can't imagine that transaction ever taking place. I mean, we all know about the 50p and the consternation that caused. So I can't imagine either of them ever lending £10 to the other one during those days. But yeah, it must have been. It probably was just like at the bar. In those days, you couldn't pay on card in most pubs. I haven't got any cash on me. Can you buy this, and Steve was like, I'll buy this round. Probably something like that. Well, it wasn't like for something exciting like butt plugs, or vibrator. Can't get a vibrator for 10 quid anyway. I've tried.
Not these days.
Amazon.
This episode, there's a couple of like really stand out moments for me, like the mattress story. It says, I knew a mate who had one in the back of a van.
That is a weird, because that is such a serial killer. I know Steve jokes about it, but that is such a creepy thing to do, to drive around with a van with a mattress in the back. And I can just and again, it's like you were saying earlier, you can when they were talking about taking Ricky's sock and shoe and sock off, you can really picture that. You can picture the look on all of their faces, Steve, Ricky, and Carl, and. Yeah. I can really picture, I don't know what she looks like, but I can totally imagine Suzanne walking into that bedroom, reeking of diesel. She's like, and it's Carl underplays it. She's like he says, Suzanne said, what's going on? Like, but she must have said more than that. But I can just so imagine her walking into that and being like, get that fucking mat out of our. And it's funny because you do think when you buy a bed that it comes with a mattress, but a lot of them don't. So I can totally imagine that story of happening.
And they do actually bring that story again in the podcast. This episode ends on a really kind of cold note, doesn't it? It's probably one of the harsher Carl versus Steve moments, which is no one likes to pick on an invalid.
Yeah, that's
now I feel bad even saying that word.
I think that was the invalid might be the word they dubbed into that Ricky Gervais, Chris Martin sketch. I think right. Invalid, just separate. That's totally separate to this dialogue. But I think invalid was what they dubbed in, which isn't very nice. Yeah, it's a bit of a. It's like it's not the best way to end the show because there's a lot of the humour you get in interactions like that are the laughter that you hear from Ricky. We may find it externally funny, but you do find things funny when someone is laughing, and particularly Ricky. And Ricky doesn't laugh at that, does he? No. And it's kind of like it's left hanging in the air, and it's not like a terrible way to end the show. It's just not in keeping with the quality of the rest of the show. But yeah, absolutely a classic and one of my faves. And I know it by number as well. Like I know, like if I just randomly go and scroll to 38, I know it's this show, and I know I'm going to really enjoy it. And actually, I'll say this. Obviously, we're going to carry on doing the shows in order. There's a run of a few shows now where, for different reasons, they're not always the same, and they're not all the same level of quality. But a few shows which are in my top 10. That are coming up in the next 5-6 shows, which I really like. So for whatever reason, the quality seems to go up from not winning a Sony. I think spurs them on through kind of slight embarrassment, actually, because they always win their awards. But I think in general, they're just spurred on by taking the piss.
Do you know what? It's so refreshing as well to hear people who say, I want to win an award. Because it was always that time where people were like, oh, I don't mind.
Oh, yeah. No.
Like, you remember when people used to go into Big Brother and say, oh, I don't really want to win. It's like, you want to win. And now everyone, there's no shame in it now. I like a little like a geeky sort of trivia note as well for this episode. You'll know it already, but in extras they talk about, would you take off your clothes to appear on a stripper pen? Yeah. Which of course they look at that in extras, don't they?
Yeah, and, that's a good. But and again, like some people aren't happy with that. I don't mind that at all. If you reference stuff like they came up with it, like it was Steve's idea in general. Yeah. So, and even stuff that Carl says, I don't mind Ricky using in his stand-up, is because he always references a friend of mine or Carl. He talks about Carl. He doesn't kind of just take the lines as his own. Like, yeah, I like them using just bits that came up during the shows, but in their later work. And yeah, that's a great example of it. The pen. We masturbating. We
masturbate. Sorry.
Masturbate. That if you do anything this weekend or this week, go watch the outtakes of that scene. They're brilliant.
Well, that's something for your weekend, guys. Masturbate to a pen and check out some outtakes. Shall we do of our favourite
Favourite quotes. Oh, I meant to reference this about the last 12 shows we've done. You may have noticed there's probably a little bit of audio playing now over me that's already playing, and we introduced a little audio track. Let us know what you think of it. I think it might work better in XFM in the community, but I'm more than happy to have it here. But yeah, we did have one piece of feedback that said, "What the fuck are you doing with this music? It's shit," basically.
Oh.
So no, but we quite like it. So yeah, favourite quotes. Now I'm always the one in favourite quotes saying to you, no, let's make it a tight 5. Let's make it a tight 5. No, and you might like, well, I've got 7 or 8. I'm like, no, make it a tight 5. Let's not do a tight 5 this week. I've quite.
Okay, all right. Well, do you want to get us started? Because I've got a suspicion you've got considerably more than me.
Okay. Well, I this isn't like, not all these lines are like outright funny, but I just like the way it says, "Ha ha ha, badly drawn boy," on XFM.
I was thinking we should come in on that, but I thought.
Love it.
Okay, I'm not a character.
I'm not a character.
The accusation that Stephen Merchant isn't actually one of the presenters, rather he's a comedy character.
Like he's basically equating Steve Merchant and Holy Foot. Like they're the same level of. And actually that was a great email from Dickie Anders. That's one of his best actually, because
I agree.
Just for that line, introducing the characters, and he must have thought to himself after he'd written a few characters, I'll put Steve Merchant as well, you know, it'd be funny.
Steve Merchant, the funny little West Country fella.
Yeah. There must be something in this that means The Office is award winning and this is a pile of shite. And again, I did like it because, again, you have to remember this is on like midday on a London-based radio show, you know, where you're not allowed to say those things.
Well, they do this brilliant bit until they go, so us two do The Office, award winning, and us three do this show. No awards. Yeah, that was possibly going to be one of my quotes, but it's not. Go on. I have to say, guys, I'm going to say a bit of a naughty word here, but I have to include it because it makes me laugh every time.
Oh, I know what you're going to... Listen, before you say this, I would have included this, but I cannot say this. Now, I don't endorse what Mars says, because if you're listening to this and you happen to be from my course or running my course, then I don't endorse him. But I have to say, like in a cheeky little way, I would have put. I was frustrated. I couldn't.
The sound of the PC brigade. Woo!
Yeah, no one.
Okay, here it comes. Are you a couple of benders?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry that I find that funny, but.
No, it's funny.
It's in funny. Context. It's funny, all right.
Yeah. No, because they just sort of say more like,
film it.
Obviously, we both need to go in. And what if one of us goes in and just what if we just film it and we just leave the camera in there?
He just keeps going on. He keeps.
Yeah, I know. It gets weird, and those bits, as I said before, are so creepy in a funny way because of their like normalness. He's not saying, "Oh, could we stand and masturbate to it?" You know, he's saying, "Can we just come in? We just watch, or one of us watch, or we'll just film it and we'll then watch the footage back." I just imagining.
Tell you what, it's not the first creepy thing that Ricky's done as well. Like in the series Zero, there's some brilliant like offcuts of that show that aren't like of a full show, and basically Ricky's trying to get a caller. He's going to send him a 4-pack of beer, and it sounds really crap, but it is one of the funniest things.
No, it doesn't sound crap.
This bloke doesn't get it at all. He's like, "What? You were just going to send me beer?" It's like, "Yeah, everyone likes beer. I'm going to come round. I'm going to come to your house. Tell me your address, and I'll be delivering some beer to you." It's just so
Zero is
weird.
Great. Actually, we were talking about the surrealism of Bob Mortimer. And how it's not the same. The surrealism isn't the same. The level of quality is the same. But those Series Zero shows are more surreal than it. Actually, ironically, because as much as Carl makes it surreal, and he's a surreal character, not a character, he's a real person, but he's a character within the show, fabric of the show. It's actually more surreal, some of the stuff they did without Carl, ironically.
Yeah, really bizarre.
You've already said it, I did have it. There's a weak link in
our midst. Yeah. Ricky, when he comes back and you go, yeah. I love that. I've got 2 and that's okay. You got nice toes and that.
Yeah.
I just love his breathy delivery when he sort of. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, and I tell you what, something you haven't mentioned, I'm sure you're going to get round to it. It's at the end when he goes under his breath when they're talking about the infinite monkey theorem that comes back, and he says, right, got a room, got a couple of monkeys, not an infinite amount then.
Yeah.
Go on.
No,
Got
no,
a
yeah.
computer then.
I
Not
love
a time then. And then
I,
you can just hear Carl under his breath, and it's brilliant. One of those things we talked about in a few weeks ago,
yeah.
of like things that you've got to really have acute hearing to get.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, I hate him. I hate
Yeah,
him.
yeah, I know. Yeah, very subtle, very meaningful. Like when Carl says he hates Ricky, my God, in those moments he hates Ricky. It's not for show. Ricky is really annoying in those, but I love that monkey, that whole infinite monkey film. I haven't got many quotes from that particular bit, but that whole thing could be a quote for me. Like not an infinite
Yeah.
amount. No, oh, about 8 monkeys. And
Oh, let me just calculate that as a fraction of infinity.
It's a fact of the show. I always say this when these things come up. That was in probably the top 5 contenders for the name of this show. Oh, about 8 monkeys
Yeah.
was going to be the name of the show. So that's how much I love that line. And then my next line was, "I'm not a character." This is a line Miles and I use between us all the time. What are you going to spend your 80 quid on?
Yeah.
That's we quote
you
that.
can spend your 80 quid
Whenever
on
money comes up or something,
You can replace that value with anything.
with anything, yeah.
My next, and that was Stunker Diesel on that.
Stunker Diesel on that.
Just
I
the
could just,
Stunker Diesel, like.
I could just,
Oh.
yeah, that's the good thing about radio as well. Rather than seeing that scene like Carl like actually do that, it's funnier not seeing it, and because I've got this picture in my head, and I'm there, I can smell it. I can smell when he says that. I can smell how
Because
bad.
everyone knows what Diesel smells like, and it's one of those really memorable smells.
Now who's the weak link?
That's brilliant. That is such a smart.
Yeah, it's got as because there's and then
Was three of us didn't even win an award.
Yeah, it is a great comeback actually. Just in and of itself, on its own, like because there's like, oh well, there's 2 of you for a start, which is a bit like, all right, he's still under the guise of comedy, so he's not. I'm not saying he's being harsh by saying that, but he's kind of putting Carl down a bit. Like, no, he's putting his award down. Well, there's 2 of you. Yeah, well, there's 3 of us. Can't even get a bronze. Great.
My next one was left him at school because never had a bag.
Never had a bag.
I love it because it just reminds me of those days at school where you got your new pencil case and you got your new lunchbox, your new Thomas the Tank lunchbox, and your little your what were they called, those bags? The drawstring bag, like a Nike or an Adidas kind of drawstring. Oh, it just reminds me of that. I just imagine little Carl Pilkington as a kid with a little Sainsbury's bag or a Summerfield bag full of like biros and a little ruler and a rubber. I love it.
Yeah, I don't think he even had that, but but Ricky's reaction to that again is great because it doesn't always have to be a huge Ricky laugh, but it's just the way Ricky says it, and he's incredulous to himself. Like he said, never had a bag.
Some great laughs in this episode as well from all of.
There's one Ricky laugh in this show. I was going to say is my favourite ever, but I can't remember which. I didn't write down which one it was. Anyway, so yeah, my next one. It did start off with, "Would you rub Dale Winton's neck?" And it's funny, like if a conversation starts off with that, it's not insignificant. He says it starts off with that.
It's also a really careful pick of the person because obviously they're gonna choose Dale Winton, or they were gonna choose someone like Graham Norton or like.
Yeah. No, but Dale Winton is perfect because you can imagine Dale Winton even in those days when he was like in his, I guess, mid-30s. He would have knots in his neck. I don't know why. You can imagine. Whereas like other celebrities, you can't imagine having a knot in the neck.
Tell you what, there was actually a great interview. I was going to say this at the start. It's a brilliant radio interview between the 3 of them and Dale Winton where they have a chat. They obviously don't bring that up, for God's sake. But it's funny because Dale's like, you could tell they were probably fascinated by him because I was actually really sad when he died because it was like, he was a proper prominent figure of me growing up, of like us growing up. Yeah. And he was like always on the telly, wasn't he? Like him, Michael Barrymore, they were always on the telly. Oh, and Cilla Black as well.
Well, I'd say Cilla Black, Blind Date was like, very few things we did together as a family, but watching Blind Date was one of them. Watching things like Father Ted were other ones that were good. But I watched Blind Date. I must have watched about 5 series, every episode of Blind Date. It was just one of those things you just like an
Brilliant.
institutional thing. Yeah, it was. I mean,
I wish we had that now.
It was
Maybe
fun. It
Saturday
was
night.
fun. You often thought like, oh, I wonder what it would be like to go on there, or to have to. And obviously, now I look back on it. If I ever see a clip of it, was far more set up than
Yeah.
I realised as a child. But we were talking. I just do want to make this point because I feel he's got such an unfair press that anytime Michael Barrymore's mentioned amongst polite society within my social circle, I always want to say how much I like him. He was such a talented presenter. I saw him live on a show which wasn't very good. He'd say the funniest things.
Oh, I hated that.
And the kids were, but it was because of the kids. They just weren't. It wasn't funny enough concept. But he was really funny on it. Like anyway, but yeah, Dale Winton again, seen as a very twee and sort of like very he didn't do serious stuff, but he found his niche, and he fucking. I'll tell you this: Would I Lie to You is a program we both watch. There's sort of a panel of 6 celebrities, and they each have a card to read out something, and it's either true or false, and the other team guessed. Dale Winton appeared on that as one of the guests once, and he was fantastic. He's not a comedian as such, but he was really, really good. And
I imagine after our Gary's, someone said online we should do an Ainsley Harriott podcast because we talk about it enough. Why don't we do? We'll have to do a Day of Winton.
A Gay Winton. That was
a Freudian shit.
Okay, enough talk about Dale Winton. But yeah, I that was my quote. It did start off with rub Dale Winton's neck because it's just such a funny thing to.
Says Winton great as well,
a conversation starting off at that point. Would you Dale Winton's neck?
I'll make it back on selling the pens.
Make it back on selling.
I just love how quickly he says it. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. My next one was 28. Next one, not what's Coldplay here.
That's
a great line by Carl.
A sharp comeback.
And this show has a couple of examples. There's lots of them throughout the whole series where they're genuine examples of the sharpness. And people who say Carl Pilkington, yeah, he's an idiot. He really isn't. He's dim in some ways, and he plays up to it. But he is so sharp comedically, and that was another great line and there's so many examples where the humour doesn't come from him pretending to be an idiot, more of an idiot than he actually is, and he pretends and he strokes slightly is, but I'm not saying pretending like acting, but
yeah, it
doesn't always come from that. It often can come from very sharp and funny lines. And that's a good example. Not what's Coldplay. Here's another one. Ask Suzanne.
Suzanne. Suzanne.
Suzanne. That's funny because it's so true. I can totally imagine that. But he would. That's how he'd say, "Oh, you're all right," and that you got good toast. Yeah. And my last one, it's already come up. Never had a bag. And that's
never had a bag. Well, if you've got a favourite quote or we've missed any out that were your favourites, do email us spinnerspodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter, which is @spinnerspodcast, or if you've got any email correspondence. And yeah, like Gary said at the start of the app, we're going to carry on this show now. We're going to do an XFM in the Community special, which will go out as a separate special, like you said, because we have been elongated with lots of lovely New Year's messages from all of you DCharties, lots of new listeners, and lots of questions that we wanted to devote proper time to rather than squeeze them into this show, which I've enjoyed. I've enjoyed doing this show.
Yeah, I've very, very enjoyed this one. And so we will let's end it here because but we'll put two songs in. No, Percy. Yeah, I know. Oh, God. Okay, let's do the songs quickly and then we'll come to record the.
Can you explain what it is, Gary? Because you had a ripe old education over Spotify last episode. Do you remember the things I told you about?
How Spotify works?
Well, no.
There was one episode where I asked you that.
How does D-Trout Spinner's library work?
Yeah, well, basically we post the track and you put a link and you can get the link goes to the online listening post.
Wow.
So no, I genuinely can't remember.
I've
learnt nothing.
He hasn't, no. What we do, guys, we take a song each that we like or that, we've been prescient or on our minds for some reason, and we put them into our Spotify playlist, which goes out every week. And you can listen to it. It's there on Spotify, and I'll put a link in the description.
What was yours first? We'll do it that way.
Okay, so I had to change my mind at the last minute because it was originally going to be an Arctic Monkeys song because we talked about Arctic Monkeys last week. But I have to change it because this has been the anniversary of David Bowie's death and birthday.
Has it? Oh yeah. 'Cause I put on.
There was lots of really good stuff on Radio 6 on the BBC Sounds app, which I highly recommend. Like brilliant documentaries, live performances, stuff on the BBC iPad. Bowie was a very, very influential, important figure for me growing up, like with my mum, who's a big Bowie. And the big thing that is a part of me and my mum's relationship. So I'm going to pick the Bowie song, and the one I'm going to pick is Absolute Beginners, just because we're absolute beginners when it comes to podcasting.
Okay, no, that's a nice one. I mean, and nice as well to pick one of Bowie because I can totally vouch for that. Mars and his mum get on anyway, but they're huge Bowie fans, both of them. And I've always considered myself a fan of Bowie, but I didn't realise quite how obsessive like it can get. Quite with good reason. I didn't realise there's so many fans out there who were really obsessive, which Miles and his mum both are, like I am with Oasis. So good choice, mate. I would say for me, I'm going to choose a song that when I went to Birmingham University in 2002 when I was 18,
showing his age there.
It didn't work out, by the way, because I for many reasons.
There was a weak link in his midst.
There was a weak link in my midst. But no, there's a guy who played the guitar, and so he tried to teach me the guitar. And one of the things I did kind of learn and I've always liked this song. This way I asked him to teach me. "Come As You Are" by Nirvana.
Oh, good choice.
Yeah, and it's a really hard to play actually. I can't play it. I can play it now.
Can you think of the link between Nirvana and David Bowie? How can we tie those two together in a neat little bow? What's the link? 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 Oh, what the link?
Well, what? What was that voice you did?
Don't know.
I don't know which one of them did it first, but was the Man Who Sold the World?
Correct.
So whose song was it?
Bowie's.
Yeah, I thought so because Bowie's before Nirvana, but I just watched a documentary on Nirvana. It was so interesting. I won't get too into it, but it was talking about how when on songs, when you hear a song on an album, they've recorded two sets of vocals and they put them on top of each other. I don't know why. That's like. Kurt Cobain was just like, no, I'm not doing that. It's just not real. It's just I'm not. The producer said, actually, John Lennon did it, and Kurt Cobain was apparently a huge John Lennon fan, which pleases me, and I don't know why. It just pleases me, and he did it. He did this double kind of take of songs, but anyway. That was just a random moment from the documentary, but I'd highly recommend it. But yeah, that's my song, "Come As You Are." And that is us today. We've come as we are. We were.
Hey!
We are.
Brings it back.
And we're going to leave as we are as well.
All right, guys. Do like, subscribe, and thank you to everyone who has left a review and rating on our Apple. Always welcome. If you could support the show in any way, that'd be brilliant. Really, so nice little thing you can do. Otherwise, keep listening.
Next week, Dr. Fox. Yeah, and obviously this week we'll put them out together so you'll be able to see before you get to this bit of audio that there is two shows. Don't ever do that because the context is like so. He's like Mars does that sometimes, but I say no, don't ever do that.
No.
But still does. So yeah, thanks guys, and we will see you. We'll see you next week with the main show and a bit of XFM in the community coming up.